Hey Nolan, I think you're muted. At least I can't hear you.
Yep, I was muted that whole time. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry. So this is the Cluster API provider for AWS community meeting on December 9th, 2024. Just a reminder for folks that we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct. And if you would like to participate, please raise your hand and then I will get you in at the next appropriate moment. Um, And sorry, I had paused to see if anybody was new to the call and would like to introduce themselves. Okay. So yeah, I'll go into the agenda then. Last week I was looking into the CI jobs and they are in a very bad state. The periodics are not passing very often. Um, we also have, let's see, there was EKS um, tests that are never passing, particularly when they try to add an add-on when there's just a EKS control plane. But I was able to find at least one cause of the issues, which was a bad customize uh, version. Not bad. It required Go to be greater than 122.7, and right now we only have 122.0 available. Thank you, Daniel, for jumping on and proving that. Um, we, yeah, let's see Damiano's comment there now. I also added let's see, where is it? Oh, yeah. I added an ignore rule for customize just in general, because this Dependabot keeps proposing this and it keeps breaking us. So I turned that off so we don't get broken again. Um, the other failure I've noticed in CI is that there is an AWS IAM bootstrapper user, and the CloudFormation bootstrap constantly fails because it sees that user already existing. We or have logic to clean up other IAM entities like groups and policies because of this exact kind of problem where the entity exists and therefore CloudFormation fails the entire CloudFormation stack and tries again and it still exists. And so this hopefully fixes that, but I think it would need to be merged in order to prove out that it's working on the periodics. Um, so I guess with that, um, I'm looking for folks willing to help go through CI jobs and see if they can find failures and create issues for them. We really need good CI signal to be able to get releases out and have confidence that they're working. So if you would like, please take a look through the dashboard page here. Delete them. And see if you can find any information, open an issue about it, and write things down. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a PR, just to start the investigations. I'm going to open it up to you all if anyone has anything more on that. No? Okay. Well, as a component of that, also, oh, Daniel, are you? No? Okay. Um, as a component of that, it would be nice if we had folks who have some EKS experience. Um, I have very little myself, and I've been trying to debug some issues. It looks like, um, specifically with that EKS test that I was trying, last week. Um, I spun my wheels for a few days without realizing that the EKS test was actually working previously, basically because of an error on AWS's part. It never should have been passing in the first place. Um, in quick summary, the test creates a control plane, which is unschedulable for users. And then the test also tries to schedule a core DNS deployment on the control plane, which can never be scheduled because users can't schedule on the control plane. How it ever passed, I don't know. But it seems whatever behavior was allowing it to pass has now been changed. So if folks have EKS knowledge, that would be incredibly helpful for the CI stuff there too. Yeah, Andres.
So this was about the CoreDNS add-on, right?
Yes.
Isn't it configured to like tolerate running on workers? I mean, that's the only way I can think the self-deployed add-on works because they do have a docs page on CoreDNS self-managed add-on.
Hmm. Yeah, so let's see if I can pull up the test here. Um, the test itself,
Hey, let's run this on workers.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said last. Sorry. Can you hear me, Andres?
Think we lost Andreas? I don't hear him.
Didn't say,
Yeah, I can hear you sometimes. It sounds like there might be a bad internet connection.
didn't say anything. Was just wondering, hey, yeah,
Yeah, the mic's not working. So just I think what you were saying is that Core DNS should be able to, oh, he dropped. Um, see if he rejoins here in just a second. Okay. Yeah. So to answer what I think you're asking, Andreas, the test right here only creates a control plane. It does not create any worker nodes. So when I was testing this manually and creating an EKS cluster just through the web console, not using any CAPI stuff, as soon as I created a worker node group, it started working. So
okay, makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, Core DNS does have the tolerations to run there. This test, I think, was just written in such a way that was trying to reserve or conserve resources and not take up too many. But something has changed on AWS's side that this is no longer schedulable unless you create a node group, which actually makes sense in the way EKS is supposed to work. So I'm surprised it ever worked. Um,
Yeah, it should have never worked. But then also, why do we have a test that only creates a control plane? Is that kind of important?
yeah, I was hoping Richard would be on here because most of the EKS stuff is was created by him. Um, so I would like to pick his brain and see why some of these things are created the way they are. So um, I have asked for his review on this. I haven't gotten anything back yet. I may end up editing this PR to just use Ginkgo skip um, such that like maybe we keep the test code around until we can add logic to make a node group for it. Um, but if folks could give a review to this, I actually don't think it's passing CI now anyway. Um, but yeah, we need CI help and specifically um, EKS. So okay. Unless anybody else has any more on that, I will move on. All right. Uh,
Yes.
Julio, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been reviewing the quick start. By the way, if you can't hear me, just let me know. The one thing that I think is a bit confusing is that got all these other providers like Azure and Docker and KubeVirt and so on. I thought that might be a good idea to remove that. I wanted to pick your brains on how do you feel about it. Also, the it only works if you fetch the latest AMI from IAMI list command, and that's not clear in the doc. So I thought about adding that. And one thing that happens is that the cluster doesn't get reachable. I try to get into the node, but it just says that it can't reach the API server, and I don't know exactly why. I've been through the thing many times, and it just fails to debug. So I was thinking, what would be if someone could help me out on this, or how to get some help on it. Yeah, that's it for the quick start review. Any comments on that before I talk about the dedicated hosts stuff?
Yeah, I wanted to ask for the remove other providers. Um, which quick start are you talking about? Are you able to provide a link?
Yeah, sure. On the repository, there is a book link. Uh,
This-
yeah, search for book. Yeah, yeah, right there. And on the left, you see getting started. It's actually getting started, sorry, not quick start. Yeah, I'm trying to get through I think this should be like a quicker start. Because in the first, you see there's Docker, KubeVirt, and Default. And right after that, there's Azure and other providers in the other box. So I think this
oh.
is a bit
So,
confusing.
yeah. Okay, I think I know what this is. So this is the same as I think this page is actually
A copy from the,
copied from cluster APIs,
yeah,
getting started or
yeah,
quick start. Okay. Yeah. We can take a look at that and see if we can trim most of this stuff out and make that a
yeah,
little clearer.
yeah.
Uh,
That's one suggestion.
okay. This FET, if you're saying for the next one, if you're saying you can't get this to work at all without the latest Kubernetes AMI, would you make a bug for that so that we can track like the behavior and see what we need to fix?
Yeah, because in the quick start, there is no mention like where we should get this. It says 1.31.2, for example, in the generate cluster command, but this AMI doesn't exist there actually.
Okay.
So if you search for, I think the latest AMI is 135.
Oh, 1.30.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this doesn't actually work.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's a bug that we need to update the AMI builder.
Or just add a variable there and fetch the latest from AMI list command. That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, good. I'll submit that PR, but even so, the in the end, the cluster doesn't isn't reachable. And when I connect to the instance, it says that it can't reach the API server, and really it isn't up in the load balancer, but I'm not sure why. That's
Okay.
the current thing I'm working on.
Do you have a link to a bug or any logs that you can share?
Yeah, I do actually. I'll add it to the document
Okay.
right
I
away.
can sync up with you later and we can take a look at that.
Thanks, mate.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
And okay, then you are asking about adding a dedicated host. Um, so I'll let you, I'm going to pull up
Yeah,
the
just
PR, but I'll let you.
yeah, just added the issue there. Yeah. Yeah, and so this is the idea to add dedicated hosts, but I'm not sure like in which element of the spec should we add it. If it should be on the machine template or on the cluster resources. So that's I've been trying to think about this, but not sure. The basically it would mean on the run instances API, you can say the host ID and affinity that you want. So you say that you want this host on this ID, this instance on this host ID, and what happens when it's rebooted, the full behavior, that it only relaunches in the same host ID, or if it can launch in other host IDs, basically. But the most important thing is the list of host IDs in which you want that machine to run. And the hard part there is to actually say which instance runs on which host ID. Like I want this database to run on this specific host ID. And I'm not sure exactly how we can control that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give folks a second if they have any responses before I jump in. Okay. So my question would be, is this something that you would want? Is this something that you would want the entire cluster to do? So if this option is on, should the in all nodes of the cluster conform to it? Or is this just something that only specific nodes should do?
Only specific nodes. Like just to be clear on the use case, it's for databases that are licensed per core,
Okay.
and you need to know exactly how many cores are on the host. So
Okay.
basically, you have to say this instance will run on this host, and then you say the host ID. You pre-allocate a host, and then you get a host ID, and you pass that host ID to the run instances call.
Okay. Okay. And I see here you explicitly leave out host allocation, which makes sense for the time being, so that when a user wants to get the dedicated host, they would go make it. They would have their
Yeah.
list of IDs that they would provide.
Yeah, for now, I'm thinking about pre-allocated host IDs. I'm not
Yep.
considering the case that we would allocate the host IDs because that would be an extra complexity and quite unnecessary because it's probably pre-allocated anyway. The user probably wants to use his pre-allocated host IDs. So that's
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, can we split the the problem into two parts. I mean, I guess I think we maybe we already have, but one problem is assigning the machine to the dedicated host, and Kappa is really the best placed component to do that. But once that's done, can we design this in a way that we don't have that Kappa does not have to think about how applications will actually find their way to machines that run on specific hosts. For example, right, as long as there is some metadata that's available, that sort of like the what is it called, the node feature, is it feature, I'm sorry, I think it's node feature.
Is it like
But
a
basically, right,
node selector?
No. It's, so for example, if you've got GPUs or some kind of hardware that you need, right? You can run some component that finds this, adds labels, right, and then you figure out everything based on these labels. And so in the same way, right, if there is some information on the machine about the host on which it runs, and maybe that metadata, right, doesn't even have to be exposed by Kappa. Maybe it can be discovered from the machine itself somehow. Maybe not, but maybe Kappa would be responsible for that. But then once Kappa creates the VM instance on this dedicated host, maybe adds the metadata to the node if it has to, then its job is done. And anything about scheduling, that's up to other.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's just a matter of passing the correct host ID to the run instances call, and then it's up to AWS to keep it. Yeah.
I mean, beyond that. So once that is done, right? If I, for example, if I want to run a specific database, right, or I want to run a database on a specific dedicated host, then it's my responsibility to, let's say, if the database runs as a stateful set, or I don't know, let's just say it's just one pod, right? I need to ensure, I'm responsible for figuring out how that pod gets scheduled to a VM that runs on this dedicated host. And Kappa, let's say, will be responsible for adding some metadata to the node resource.
Yeah, the proper affinities and tolerations. I don't know but yeah, need to tag it properly so they would run the specific pods on those instances.
I don't know if affinity is the.
Yeah, I'm not sure also, but yeah.
I think it can be just a. So I think maybe it's worth thinking about
paints and tolerations. I don't know.
No, I don't think taints and toleration. I think maybe it's worth thinking about from the application's perspective. What does an application care about when it comes to a dedicated host? Is it what are these characteristics that an application or that that a user, let's running some database, needs to know in order to decide which node the application should run on. And then Kappa can be responsible for adding this metadata to the node, because it'll be the one sort of that knows, or maybe we can even simplify it or simplify Kappa's job and just say Kappa will add a field to the node resource that indicates the dedicated host identifier, and then someone that's running the running an application, they get to figure out, okay, I need certain things, and then here's this list of dedicated hosts, and then these dedicated hosts meet my criteria, and the identifiers are this, therefore I have to select, I have to have a selector that will match against, right? So then Kappa doesn't really know anything except here's the dedicated host identifier, and then the responsibility is on the user to figure out what meaning that has.
Yeah, I think that's the first implementation, like because the user will have this host ID that they want, or we can tell them that they need to have a host ID before using this feature. But one future implementation might be like, oh, I just need to be sure that the underlying host has this many CPUs. But honestly, I think that's way over the top. Like for most users, at least the ones that are requesting this feature, is I just want to use this host ID and solve my licensing um, compliance issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But again,
go ahead.
I just want to emphasize, right, that there's the problem of creating the VM on the right dedicated host.
Yeah.
There's the separate problem of getting an application to run on a node that
Is on that
is
VM.
backed by the VM that is on the host.
Yeah,
And
I'm working on problem 1 first, and then we see problem 2. Like first, let's make sure we pass the host ID to the run instances call, so that works, and then we can go to the pod
okay, great.
allocation
Yeah,
problem.
hopefully that second problem won't be Kappa's responsibility at all, and we can just leave that. As long as we get the node resource, right, is what the user that's running an application will have, right? We can't guarantee that they're looking at machine or AWS machine resource, but they know that they have the node, and if that node has information about the dedicated host on which it's running, then the user can make application scheduling decisions.
I see.
Yeah. So to return to the kind of mechanical question of where should this information go? Where should the user provide it? I'll have to think about that on where
No
this might,
worries.
yeah, where the best field might be. Um, the machine template isn't dedicated directly to a cluster, but right now, machine templates are basically you take the whole machine template to stamp out new machines, so that might not be the best place either. Um, let me, yeah, let me look through this stuff and I'll try to give you an answer on this PR
No
in the next
worries.
couple
Yeah,
days.
just pitching the subject, and yeah, we can take this offline and work together in this in the future. Just sharing the current status of this. Thanks.
Okay. And last on the agenda, Mohammed, you are talking about this controller feature.
Yes, hi. Yeah, so we interesting on working on this granularity for which controller to be run. So basically, the use case for rows in the user or EKS in the user, they are not interested in having the AWS regular cluster controller continue to be running because we don't use that. So the idea then we need to have a feature flag for AWS to be enabled or disabled the AWS cluster, AWS machine controller. But in giving some thoughts on this, theoretically, the user can be able to turn off all the feature. And then that will make a problem for the provider if that case happen. And as well as for dependency. For example, the machine pool feature, I guess it depends on the AWS cluster and machine feature. So if this off, this also need to be off. So I'm just wondering if there are any thoughts that there like a certain flow that we should consider, or like should we make this a check then if the AWS feature close off for the cluster and machine, so then we must not enable the machine pool as well, or like raise an error if the user enable the machine pool feature without enabling the AWS feature. Like this kind of combination of features should be also be considered in this issue as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I so yeah, I've definitely seen this pattern before in other projects that they can enable and disable controllers. Um, Regarding the dependency issue, I don't know if it makes sense to expose the details of all the controllers to the user, because that would then give them the opportunity to turn off stuff that they might need, and they don't understand that, right? Like if they turn off a controller that some other higher level controller needs, then they'd be stuck. So I wonder if the enabling and disabling is perhaps kind of coarse. It's a coarse granularity so that we can say, like, for instance, you could turn off managed offerings entirely. So if you say, I know I'm not going to make a Rosa or EKS cluster, I can say, I don't know, dash dash no managed or something like that. Um, or if I know I'm not going to want EKS specifically, I can say dash dash no EKS or whatever that would be called. Um, I think I think it is more tricky in the case where this is being managed by Kappa, right? Where it's not a managed control plane because we are the ones doing all that interlinking, and we would have to figure out those dependencies so that users can't get themselves in a situation where they broke their dependent controllers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. It's just the way of making this impact all the. So, for example, let's take like a concrete example. So then, for the AWS identity creator, for example, so this one by disabling the AWS cluster machine as a feature, is this one will get affected as well? And if yes, then so how then we will be able, like, do we need to separate this? We need to decouple this, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
What's the motivation? Is it resource usage?
Well, yeah, resource usage and overlap conflict. Like we don't want like having the router running and another feature, another Kaba provider is running somewhere that keep recounseling the AWS cluster CR, and another Kaba is running using only Rosa. So double recounseling will happening in that case. as an example. This is a trivial example, but yeah, it's a resources and as well not overlapping the recounseling if case there are two Kappas running in the same control plan.
That part, yeah, I'm confused because I think the second is just not supported at all.
Yeah. So, it, admittedly, this is coming from a um, OpenShift kind of view of how things work, but I don't think it is OpenShift specific. But in our scenario, we are looking to have an instance of Kappa that manages the nodes that our cluster lives on. So that instance of Kappa is completely managed by, in our case, the OpenShift controllers. Um, those would be specifically for the cluster that it's hosted on, and the idea is, at least right now, not to let users use that for workload clusters yet. It's just to do a self-managed cluster. The other part of it is with our, in this example, it's a Rosa offering, but you could say you want another instance of Kappa that is for managing workload clusters. Those could be EKS, they could be Rosa, they could be directly Kappa managed. And the idea is to logically separate those so that you can manage their life cycle independently. That this is something I think we also are have to address with upstream Cappy, not just Kappa, um, because it's a larger use case. And I think Cap B has tried to address this a few times, and they didn't like the solutions they came up with. Um, this particular issue is focused just on what Kappa can control. So if there is an installation of Kappa where the user will strictly not be allowed to use one of these feature sets like EKS, then we can turn it off. So uh, does that help, Daniel? Does that make sense?
A little bit, but now that you spell out the use case, I'm wondering if the watch filter parameter for the control for the manager process could accomplish. I don't know, but I'm just wondering if it could, and if you've looked at that. Um,
I have not. This that might be something to take into account.
so then
Um,
you end up running, you know, two controllers, but one, yeah, you end up just scoping them to a disjoint set of objects.
Yeah, watch filter is definitely a way, like a workaround to do it. It is possible, but it's not like, like I believe it's not the right way. Like let's assume the user create AWS resource with the watch filter that we assume that we're gonna read, so that's mean he overcome our limitations. So, like I see the better approach is to have a feature footprint, but it's just how to apply this feature. When enabling AWS or AWS and EKS and Rosa, like each one need to be a feature in its own, and it is. It's by default it is. So just the AWS cluster and machine by default enabled, and there is no way to turn them off if you want. So that might be, I mean, the better approach to handle this better from the watch or the label watch or this kind of approach to handle.
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think uh, we just want to we this sounds like maybe a niche use case, not the common use case. So if we can avoid it, as long as it doesn't make things more complex or the user experience more complex for the common use case, then yeah, I mean, we have, let's say, if we theoretically we have more feature flags or more granularity, uh, as long as you don't need to know about that or use it, unless you have a very specific use case. In which case, right, we'll just say, look, if you're using this level of granularity, we're not going to support that as maintainers, right? We're not going to test this matrix of all these different features and how they interact. One is on, one is off. If we can say that, then
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And
But
that,
if you can write down why the watch filter is not acceptable, that would really be helpful. Because I don't think I completely understood. I'm sorry. Why it wouldn't work.
well, what I said, it could work, but it limits your way of doing things. So let's assume we start the watch filter with by having customer sorted start with label XX, for example. So that's mean only the customer sorted start with label XX will be watched by this Kappa version that is running Rosa. So if whenever user using another using AWS custom resource to create AWS, that's not gonna be watched. But let's assume he just put XX label as well. So we're gonna fill over again for the double recounting problem. So having the feature, like linear feature for every component, it is like a better approach. And it is actually like as of today, it's already happening like this. Like you have every all component running in its own, way, and mixing them together, like it doesn't raise any issue for us. It's just we need to have the way to disable this or enable that for the AWS. So. But in case, let's assume we have this feature now, it's not supposed to make any difficult for end user because by default it will be true. So that the user, the same way it install Kava, it will should run out of the box. So just if the user like us, they want to disable it, so then they need to go and then disable it by themselves. But for end user perspective that use Kappa, it should work as the same.
That and that yeah, that definitely has to be true. The other thing that I think we would like to be true, or those of us in the meeting here, is that if as we're working on the code, we don't want to have to think, will my change now, will it work or will it break if someone disables some other that would be a problem, right? Because that would make just maintenance more difficult. I'm so not saying that actually would be a problem. It's just that's something that I think we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, because that's actually why I have raised this here now. If anyone have any clue or that will make problems, so it will be good if someone can point us to that. That's the reason I'm open this issue here. That I want to hear from you guys if you have any. If you done that, that's gonna break this. So don't do that. That's why I'm
Yeah.
trying to raise this here. But well, okay then. So. Like we will investigate a bit more, like getting more investigation, and maybe we can come back here again. Hey guys, this is how we're gonna make it. It's not supposed to break anything, but we need to do some more investigation. And then in terms of feature naming, that's fine. Naming like an AWS feature or something like that will be okay. Any concern? No.
Well, how about we have a proposal for what the flags and stuff would be named and what they might cover so that we can then go over that before we get to implementation.
Okay.
Um, and Daniel, I see you have a question in chat. Can we use an experimental feature flag? There is a directory for an experimental API. Um, I know Upstream Cappy has one as well, and uh, I think the general consensus is that folks would like to move away from that because it's like a completely separate copy of the API that we have to carry. Um, but I think the big things here for moving forward is the default has to be what the way it works today, which I think we're all in agreement on. Um, and that we're not necessarily going to be able to add CI to capture all the permutations. I think that would be on the downstream consumers to have their own testing, which I think we totally expected to do anyway. Um, that they would be responsible for making sure that their combination worked, and if things did break, we're like folks to come and contribute that fix upstream. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Daniel.
yeah, and AWS is not. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that, yeah, I wasn't talking about experimental API. I was saying experimental feature flag, however that's expressed. It just as a clear signal on the, when you're writing the command line, that by using these flags, it's not, you know, it's not well supported. You can't go and say, hey, I disabled this controller but enabled this one and things broke. Please fix it.
Right. Yep.
That,
Yep. I
that's
see
all
what
I'm
you're
saying.
saying.
Yeah, not an experimental API, just some
I see. So you're saying,
something that clearly communicates,
yes. Yes.
not like not yeah, not I don't know, not supported, not well supported, something not tested. Because, yeah, like you said, we can't test this whole. It's not going to be the Kappa's responsibility. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think if we have a proposal, we can go through that. I can certainly hound people for reviews, so we can look at it and get it moving forward. Does that work for you, Mohammed?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Um, we are coming close to time. I'm gonna give folks one last chance to raise their hand if we've got any um, other business. No? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.